Greetings Netherlords and welcome to the City of Threads guide on Mythic Plus difficulty. Let's get right into the tactics. The first boss of the dungeon, Orator Krix'vizk, can be a bit of a nuisance for Warlocks, especially if your tank isn't very skilled at positioning, as the fight requires a lot of movement which can disrupt your rotation. The main mechanic you'll face is Chains of Oppression, a circle around the boss that prevents you from moving more than 10 yards away. If you do, you'll be pulled back and take damage. The circle moves with the boss, so if he's repositioned too much, you'll be yanked whenever you fall outside of it. The boss will occasionally afflict two players with Shadows of Doubt, a dispellable ticking dot that explodes in a star pattern upon expiration, firing 5 shadow balls. These deal substantial damage and stun anyone hit for 3 seconds. While Healer will manage dispelling the debuff, you should position yourself in a way to avoid getting hit or hitting others. Being stunned and then pulled by Chains of Oppression can easily result in death on higher keys. The Orator also casts Vociferous Indoctrination, a group-wide AoE that drops lingering influence beneath him. The influence spreads in a circular formation and the tank will need to move the boss away from it. While Indoctrination itself deals moderate damage, lingering influence causes massive damage every second you stand in it, and it spreads quickly. Lastly, the boss casts Terrorize, a frontal cone that deals deadly damage. If it doesn't kill you, it will fear you, likely resulting in your death as you move in and out of the Chains of Oppression. Cooldowns should be used on the pull before the fight's many movement-heavy mechanics begin, as once you're forced to dance around the room, there won't be much time to cast. Fangs of the Queen is a council fight where the bosses share a health pool. As this is quite rare these days, both Affliction and Destruction Warlocks should rejoice. The fight consists of 2 cycling phases which are not too different from each other except for 2 changing abilities. Throughout both phases, players will be targeted by Knife Throw, a mild damage ability that leaves a short and weak dot. However, if group-wide AoE damage is happening, it's a good idea to pop a defensive or heal yourself quickly. NX casts Shade Slash, a frontal cone that deals strong damage and leaves behind Echoing Shade. These shades will wander around, and each time NX casts Shade Slash again, the shades will copy him, so some dodging is required. During his phase, NX will also cast Dustbringer, which causes moderate group-wide AoE damage and creates circle around him and his echoes that explode for high damage after 3.5 seconds. Dodge the circles and use the defensive if you also have a dagger dot on you, especially if VX has recently cast Icicles. This ability deals moderate damage, leaves a dot, and slows you by 30%. Since this encounter doesn't require a specific pet, if you're playing Affliction or Destruction, it's a good idea to have your imp out. His Singe magic can remove the Icicle debuff, reducing strains on both your health and the healer's mana, and making overlaps more manageable. During VX's active phase, she will cast Rhyme Dagger on the tank, afflicting them with freezing blood. Everyone must stack with the tank assigned a circle to help alleviate this effect and prevent the tank from freezing and being stunned for 30 seconds. When the 2-phase cycle finishes, both bosses will dash around the room, so avoid their frontals and focus on dealing damage. You should use your cooldowns at the start when not much is happening, as the fight becomes more chaotic as it progresses. The Coaglamation is a rather straightforward fight. The main ability to watch out for is Vicious Darkness, a slam attack that knocks all players back and releases black blood from canisters around the room. This blood will flow towards the boss, healing him for 7% of his health for each blood orb that reaches him. Your goal is to intercept the orbs before they reach him, but don't overdo it. Absorbing an orb puts a health absorb shield on you and causes you to drop a pool of black blood. This pool deals moderate ticking damage and slows you by 35%, so avoid standing in it for too long. If you find yourself taking too much blood, you can use Mortal Coil or a Soul Sharded Health Stone to help mitigate the absorb shield. On higher keys, proper management of the pools dropped by players will be crucial, as they can quickly fill the room and hinder movement. This problem escalates as the boss also drops his own blood pool with Blood Surge, which deals deadly damage to anyone within 8 yards. The boss's pool is similar to the ones dropped by players, but it's larger and deals a bit more damage. Finally, when Coaglamation reaches 100 energy, he will unleash massive pulsating AoE damage to the entire party. This is the perfect time to use defensives. As with previous bosses, bursting at the start is preferable, since chasing orbs and constant movement will become more demanding as the fight progresses, making it difficult to stand still for long periods. Izo is a monster. Well, several monsters in one to be precise. She has several extremely deadly mechanics. The main mechanic involves spheres created by shifting anomalies, which knock you back and deal massive damage if touched, so don't touch them. The tricky part is that Iso likes to move her spheres around. Whenever she casts an ability, the spheres will fly to a random location near players, so be ready to dodge them. Splice is a strong dot that she applies to the entire party. While this is primarily a healer's responsibility, as a good Warlock, you can help out by not leaving Burning Rush on and using your Health Stone and Mortal Coil whenever possible to ease Splice's impact. Tremor Slam transforms Iso into a Crypt Lord and deals massive AoE damage to the party. Anyone standing in the circle beneath her when the casts go off will likely be annihilated, as the damage there is even higher. This is a great time to use Dark Pact or Unending Resolve to mitigate some damage. Tremor Slam also spawns Ravenous Scarabs, which deal heavy damage to the tank. After hitting the tank 5 times, they become gorged and explode, stunning anyone within 5 yards for 4 seconds and applying a moderate dot. Help burst down the adds, and if some do explode, make sure you're not near them. Umbral Weave turns Iso into a Nerubian Sage, ensnaring all players, dealing high damage, and rooting everyone for 12 seconds or until the webs are destroyed. Unfortunately, Soulburn Demonic Circle won't free you from the root, it only displaces you, so you'll still need to kill the web and help others do the same. Her final attack is a tank buster, so just stay clear of the tank and you'll be fine. While this fight doesn't involve as much movement as other bosses in the dungeon, I recommend bursting at the start. Afterward, use your cooldowns whenever they are available, as there aren't any major movement phases. On higher keys, you might want to save your cooldowns for when the adds spawn to help reduce damage tank takes. There are several significant trash mobs to keep an eye out throughout the dungeon. The first of these are Sureki Silkbinders, casters that will spam Web Bolt and cast Silk Binding. Make sure to interrupt Silk Binding and use Curse of Tongues to slow both casts down. Similarly to Orator, Heralds of Ansrect will affect players with Shadow of Doubt, a dot that explodes in a star pattern, and stuns anyone hit by the Shadow Bolts. So, again, don't get hit. The mob will also cast Twisting Thoughts, dealing moderate damage and spawning a shadow pool beneath afflicted player. While you can interrupt this, they cast it so frequently that it's not too effective. However, this is quite a long cast, so using Curse of Tongues will extend it even further, helping the group manage it. Before the first boss, you'll also face Royal Swarm Guards. Just dodge their massive frontal attacks and you'll be fine. After the first boss, you'll encounter Eyes of the Queen. They don't do much besides darting between players with Void Rush, and when they cast Null Slam, they'll go invisible and reappear behind a random player, casting a frontal cone that's so sluggish you could RP walk out of it. Alongside Eyes of the Queen, some packs will contain Covert Webmancers, who cast Mending Web, healing their target by 10% every second for 10 seconds. You don't want this to go off on higher keys, so take proper care of it. After playing hide and seek with the Eyes of the Queen and defeating NX and VX, you'll face some rather insignificant trash. The only adds to keep an eye out are 2 Covert Webmancers, which you'll probably pull alongside Royal Venom Shell, a Crypt Lord with, you guessed it, a frontal cone to dodge. He'll also cast Venom Spray, a weak group-wide AoE. The more significant part of this ability are the globs of venom that will fall from the sky. Avoid them and you're good. Inside the building where the last 2 bosses are, you'll find a huge mob called Unstable Test Subject. Despite his name and size, he doesn't do anything important. However, the smaller adds in the building, called Sureki Unnaturalers, are annoying because they cast an ability that has a massive knockback. Getting knocked back into the web wraps lining the hallway will spawn annoying enemies that don't contribute to kill percentage, but will slow you down. Ideally, your tank will pull the Unnaturalers into the Coaglamation room, making it easier to deal with the knockback. After killing Coaglamation, you'll face Elder Shadeweaver and Hulking Warshell. Each of them shares one major ability with Iso. Shadeweaver casts Umbral Weave, while Warshell casts Tremor Slam. Deal with these the same way you handle the boss versions of these abilities. Bonus tip: in the first part of the dungeon, you'll come across Queen Ansrek holograms. If you have a rogue, priest, or someone with at least 25 skill in Algari engineering, you'll be able to interact with the hologram for a short-term buff. And that's it! Everything you need to know to conquer yet another Nerubian city. If you found this guide helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe for more guides and tips. You can also catch me live on Twitch, where I stream almost every day. Remember to Soulstone, and goodbye!